Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're diving straight into one of the absolute most lucrative, high-growth opportunities happening in the clean tech space right now. We're talking about how to start a bio-CNG business in India. We are going to cover the what, the why, and most importantly, the exactly how, as we look at turning India's massive organic waste challenge into a highly scalable, high-margin energy empire. Let's get right into it. So, 90 billion cubic meters. Just let that sink in for a second. According to the data, that is India's estimated sustainable compressed biogas, or CBG, production potential every single year. And to put a number like that into perspective, that's roughly 120% of the country's entire natural gas demand. The crazy part is, the raw material is literally already out there. It's agricultural residue, municipal solid waste, cattle dung, just sitting there waiting to be processed. Section 1. The Bio-CNG Boom, India's High-Margin Energy Empire. Okay, so when a lot of people hear the word biogas, they kind of instantly picture this small backyard digester used for, local village cooking. You've got to completely erase that from your mind. Commercial bio-CNG is a totally different beast. We're talking about highly purified, compressed gas with over 90% methane content. It's the exact chemical and commercial equivalent to the CNG you put in your car or use in industrial furnaces. The only difference? It's 100% renewable. And the absolute backbone of this whole commercial ecosystem is SAT, which stands for Sustainable Alternative Towards Affordable Transportation. The government launched this back in 2018, and it completely changed the game. The goal is to set up 5,000 plants producing 15 million metric tons. But look, here's the most crucial takeaway if you're an entrepreneur. SAT provides guaranteed, long-term offtake agreements by major oil marketing companies. We're talking IOCL, BPCL, and HPCL. Basically, you produce the gas, and they legally guarantee they're going to buy it from you. Section 2. Subsidies and Financial Returns. Visualizing the money. Let's be real. You want to know if the math actually works. And the commercial appeal here is just undeniable. Under normal, day-to-day operating conditions, these commercial plants are pulling in gross profit margins of 40 to 60%, with net margins sitting comfortably between 25 and 40%. Why? Because your primary input is literal waste, so once your core infrastructure is up and running efficiently, your operating costs are surprisingly manageable. But hey, don't just take my word for it based on general industry averages. Let's ground this in some hard reality. This data is pulled directly from a confidential, real-world feasibility report by Bharat Petroleum, or BPCL. They ran the numbers for setting up an actual 25-ton-per-day capacity plant in Bargarh, Odisha. And this specific plant was designed to process 250 tons of locally sourced rice straw every single day. So let's walk through their actual CapEx breakdown to see where the money goes for a commercial-scale facility like this. The total investment? Roughly 200 crore rupees. And as you'd expect, the lion's share, about 157 crore, goes straight into plant and machinery. That's your anaerobic digesters, gas upgrading systems, those heavy-duty, high-pressure compressors. Civil works take up about 23 crore, and then land and other miscellaneous expenses make up the rest. It is for sure a heavy upfront capital expenditure, but wait until you see the returns. Here is exactly how you make that CapEx back. You've got this amazing dual revenue stream. First, your primary fuel, the bio-CNG. You sell that to the oil marketing companies for roughly 45 to 55 rupees per kilogram. For a 25-ton plant, you're looking at about 45 crore rupees annually just from that. But you absolutely cannot ignore the byproduct. The leftover digestate is a premium organic manure. Selling that off to the agricultural sector at 5,000 to 10,000 rupees a ton, that brings in another 7 crore every year. Waste goes in, 2 highly valuable commercial products come out. Now, if you're an investor, this upcoming mandate should give you some serious fear of missing out. The government just introduced the compressed biogas blending obligation. They are legally mandating that city gas networks have to blend this bio-CNG into their traditional natural gas supply. It kicks off with a 1% mandate in financial year 2026 and ramps up to 5% by 2029. That guarantees skyrocketing legally backed demand across India's entire gas network for the foreseeable future. And to make sure you can actually meet that massive demand, the government is handing out some heavy subsidies to help get you off the ground. The Ministry of New and Renewable Energy offers central financial assistance of up to 4 crore rupees per 4,800 kilograms per day of capacity. And that's capped at a maximum of 10 crore rupees per project. That is a massive chunk of your initial capital expenditure, just effectively paid for by the government.
Section 3, Step-by-Step Setup Guide, the Entrepreneur's Playbook.
All right, let's demystify this. Based on the source materials, we've distilled the whole process down to a straightforward 6-step operational roadmap. It takes you all the way from initial project planning and securing your land, right through construction and into daily operations and sales. Let's break these down. Steps 1 and 2 are all about laying your foundation. First, you absolutely need a detailed project report, or DPR. This outlines your site plan, your tech, your financials, and it's 100% mandatory for those subsidy applications we just talked about. Next, you grab 1 to 3 acres of land. But listen, the most critical part of this early stage is locking in long-term aggregation contracts for your feedstock. Whether you're using press mud from sugar factories, municipal waste, or paddy straw, you need a rock-solid, guaranteed supply chain within a 25 to 50-kilometer radius of your plant. Moving on to Step 3, licenses and compliance. This is a highly regulated sector, and it should be. You're storing and transporting highly compressed gas. So you absolutely need approval from PSO, the Petroleum and Explosives Safety Organization. You'll also need your standard factory license, GST registration, and critically, an environmental clearance from your State Pollution Control Board to make sure your plant is meeting all emission and effluent standards. Step 4 is structuring your finance and subsidies. Usually, this looks like combining that 10-core MNRE central subsidy with whatever state-level incentives you can find. Then, you go to the banks for about 50 to 60% of the project cost. And here's a huge advantage. The Reserve Bank of India officially categorizes CBG as a priority sector for lending. That makes getting those bank loans way, way easier. The remaining 20 to 30%, that's going to be your own equity. Finally, steps 5 and 6 are where it all comes to life. You build out those massive anaerobic digesters to break down the organic waste. Then you run that raw gas through upgrading systems, pulling out the carbon dioxide and hydrogen sulfide to get it over 90% methane. You compress that down to a massive 200 to 250 bar pressure, and then safely transport it in cylinder cascades right to the OMC filling stations. Section 4, Overcoming Sector Challenges, the Reality Check. Now, we have to go into this with our eyes wide open. There are risks. You're looking at potential feedstock supply chain disruptions, the high initial capex, permit delays, and distribution logistics. But there are proven mitigation strategies for all of this. For feedstock, use the government's biomass aggregation machinery subsidies to buy collection equipment like balers and tractors. To beat permit delays, get the authorities involved early and hire professional compliance consultants. And for distribution, just make sure you select a site that's geographically close to an existing city gas distribution network to keep your transport costs as low as possible. And if you're sitting there wondering if these operational risks are scaring off the big players, they absolutely aren't. They are moving incredibly fast. Take Hindustan Petroleum Corporation Limited, HPCL, for example. They just announced a massive $231 million investment push to build 24 bio-CNG facilities. Institutional capital of that sheer size proves the commercial viability of this model. They see exactly where the future is heading, and they're building it right now. Section 5, The Road Ahead. Waste to Wealth, bio-CNG drives responsible waste management, carbon reduction, and a circular economy. That is the ultimate value proposition we're looking at here. Yes, it's highly profitable. Yes, it's backed by government guarantees. But at the same time, it actively solves 2 of India's biggest environmental crises: the severe air pollution from agricultural stubble burning and the mountains of overflowing municipal solid waste in our cities. You're literally turning a massive liability into a premium asset. We've looked at the data, the generous subsidies, the step-by-step process, and the sheer scale of the potential. India's waste is turning into wealth, creating a cleaner, far more energy-independent country in the process. So I just want to leave you with this one provocative question. Are you ready to fuel the future? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Be sure to dive into the source material to start planning your own bio-CNG venture. Catch you next time.